Have you ever wondered, what would happen if a loved one vanished, and the only clues were hidden somewhere no one had ever thought to look? This isn't a movie, it's a true story, filled with chilling details, long-buried secrets, and an ending that will send shivers down your spine. In just a few minutes, you and I will walk through every moment, from the disappearance to the breathless investigation, and finally to the confession that left the entire courtroom in stunned silence. But remember, the deeper we go, the harder it will be to look away, because the truth in this story is more brutal than anything you could imagine. Imagine you vanish, not just getting lost, but completely disappearing from the world. Then, 8 years later, you're found not deep in the forest, not at the bottom of a lake, but inside an abandoned mine, the exit sealed shut from the inside. You're sitting there, leaning against the cold rock wall, next to the person you loved most. Your posture strangely peaceful, as if you had only just drifted off after a long, exhausting day. But the truth is, you had both been dead for a very long time. No blood, no signs of struggle, only shattered fragments of leg bones, and a suffocating stillness that filled the air. This isn't a story about monsters from a horror movie. This is a true story, the story of Sarah and Andrew. What was meant to be a 3-day trip into the Utah desert turned into an 8-year mystery. And the final answer was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Sarah, 26, and Andrew, 28, were an ordinary couple from Colorado. They weren't thrill seekers or survival experts. All they wanted was to escape the city for a few days, breathe in some fresh, open air, snap a few sunset photos, and spend time together. On a Friday in May 2011, they set out for the Utah desert, once home to bustling uranium mines in the mid-20th century. Now, only faded trails, rusting machinery, and pitch-black mine entrances remained, erased from official maps. Their plan was simple: camp for 3 days and 2 nights, then head home by Sunday evening. But that night, they never returned. By Monday morning, neither showed up for work. Calls to their phones went straight to voicemail. When police and volunteers began searching, the first clue they found was their car, sitting along a nearly forgotten dirt road. The hazard lights blinked faintly. The gas tank was empty. On the passenger seat lay a map and an empty water bottle. In the trunk, Andrew's phone still had battery, its GPS pointing toward an abandoned uranium mine. The search team followed that lead, but aside from the weathered mine entrance and scattered metal debris, there was no sign Sarah or Andrew had ever been there. No tent, no backpacks, no footprints. For a week, they scoured every canyon and stretch of sand, but found nothing. No one knew where the couple had gone after the car stopped. The case was eventually closed, fading into obscurity, just another cold case lost in the dry emptiness of the desert. In the fall of 2019, 2 local men drove an old pickup truck out to the abandoned uranium mines, hoping to collect scrap metal to sell for extra cash. When they reached one of the old mine entrances, they noticed something strange. Instead of the usual tangle of rusted debris, the opening was sealed shut with a thick, rusted steel plate, firmly braced with stones and rotting wood. To them, that steel plate was the big score. They had brought a cutting tool, and it took hours to carve a hole, just big enough to squeeze through. The moment the plate gave way, a rush of cold, stale, utterly still air poured out, the kind of air that only exists in a place sealed off for many years. Their flashlights swept across a thick layer of dust on the stone floor, until the beam froze on the far end of the small chamber. 2 figures sat against the wall, heads tilted, shoulders leaning toward each other. No movement, no sound. A posture so eerily peaceful, it was as if they were just resting. But when police arrived, the truth became clear. It was Sarah and Andrew. Their travel clothes were worn but intact. There were no backpacks, no water bottles, no personal belongings. The autopsy later revealed both had suffered multiple fractures in their legs and feet, injuries severe enough to make walking impossible. The most haunting detail: the only exit, the one that had just been cut open that day, had been sealed shut from the inside. There was no welding equipment, no generator, no sign of any tools at the scene. Only a suffocating, heavy silence, as if death itself had stayed in that place for 8 long years. Police sealed off the entire abandoned uranium mine area, bringing in a forensics team and metal structure specialists. The initial investigation revealed that the welding sealing the entrance had been done from the inside, but there was no indication of suicide. Chemical analysis of the weld showed a distinctive compound from a rare type of welding rod, once sold to only one store within a 100-mile radius. From there, police traced the lead to a familiar name: Mark Hansen, an old friend of Andrew's who had once been in a financial dispute with him. At first, Mark denied any involvement, but when confronted with evidence, fingerprints found on an abandoned welding cylinder near the mine, his resolve began to crack. Finally, in the interrogation room, Mark confessed. 8 years earlier, he had lured Sarah and Andrew into the mine, telling them there are valuable antiques in there. Once they were inside, he blocked the entrance and welded it shut, leaving them in darkness. He claimed he had only meant to scare them as revenge, never expecting that they wouldn't find a way out and would slowly die. The trial the following year became a media sensation. The prosecutor described the crime as a cold-blooded act that turned petty revenge into murder. Mark was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But what chilled people the most was Mark's final whisper as he was led away. "I wasn't the only one there that day. Someone else helped me seal the door." The official investigation was reopened as soon as forensic tests confirmed the identities of Sarah and Andrew. The fractures in their legs were not the result of decomposition or a cave-in, but blunt force trauma sustained before death. Most notably, the weld marks on the steel door of the uranium mine showed that someone had deliberately sealed the exit from the inside, an almost impossible act without assistance or coercion. Detectives dug into the mine's historical records and uncovered a familiar name: Ethan Cole, a former miner who had been accused by Andrew of defrauding disability benefits 10 years earlier. Cole left town shortly after the couple vanished, drifting from state to state across the West. A breakthrough came when an old friend of Cole's revealed that, while drunk, Cole had once bragged he taught Andrew a lesson he'd never get out of. When arrested, Cole initially denied everything, but under mounting pressure from the circumstantial evidence, he admitted that on the night in question, he had run into Sarah and Andrew near the abandoned mine. A verbal argument escalated into a physical fight, and he broke Andrew's leg to stop him from escaping. In a panic, Cole forced them both inside the mine and welded the door shut to scare them. But he never returned. He insisted he never intended for them to die, claiming he only wanted to make them afraid. The 2025 trial sent shockwaves through the public. The prosecution described it as a cruel act that slowly killed 2 people in darkness and despair. The jury took less than 4 hours to convict Cole of first-degree murder. The life without parole sentence was read in a courtroom so silent that the only sound was the muffled sobs of the victims' families. In the courtroom, as the jury delivered the verdict, Sarah simply closed her eyes softly. Not a single tear fell, but her hands trembled uncontrollably. Andrew was led away, not looking back or uttering a word. Outside, the Utah sky still glowed golden under the late afternoon sun, but inside the hearts of those present, everything seemed draped in gray. The locals quietly left the courthouse, carrying with them unanswered questions. What had driven 2 people who once loved each other deeply into such a dark tragedy? At the abandoned uranium mine, the wind still whistles through the rusty steel frames, covering the sealed entrance with dust from years ago. No one visits anymore, only silence remains, witnessing a story closed on paper, but still open in the memories and hearts of those left behind. And perhaps, somewhere under Utah's vast sky, the whispers of the past still echo, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. If you've followed this story to the very end, maybe you've felt one thing: the truth is never simply black or white. Amid testimonies, evidence, and verdicts, there remains a gap only those involved truly understand. But no matter what the truth is, we all learn this: one wrong decision, a moment of anger, or a buried secret can change a life forever, sometimes without any way back. Today's story ends here, but mysteries out there are still waiting to be told. If you want to continue this journey with me into thrilling cases, mysterious disappearances, and buried secrets, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell.